Chapter 10 to 12. Rei's and Conan's souls clash started to intensify, but both children were far too gone. Pain, pleasure, senses. None of that reached their minds that were being overloaded, stretched. Their chakra flared up, swirling around them, sending blue wisps all around the cave. The two chakras started to get closer, push against each other until they started to entwine. Strands made of chakra started to merge as if being knitted together. Once a strand of two chakras was done, it snapped. But wisps of Rei's chakra stayed in Conan's, similarly as some of Conan's stayed in Rei's. And the process started all over again. Hundreds, thousands of strands were merging and snapping again and again until nobody could determine where Conan starts or where Rei ends. And yet, they were both singular. Both, separated. On a deeper level, the change was even more insane. Their very souls were clashing against each other. Conan's 8-year-old small quivering soul and Rei's over 20-year-old soul were forcefully pulled together. Merging, exchanging something. Something vital. They were creating a link. As Rei's soul tore a chunk of Conan's. Conan's soul absorbed a chunk of Rei's of the same size. In multiple places were these two souls ripping apart the other and absorbing it, but not in one moment was one less than the other. They were getting in perfect sync, taking and ripping only as much as was taken and ripped from them. Conan and Rei could only stare at each other in horror as they felt their entire existence being overhauled. They felt every rip in their soul. They felt every fulfilling absorption of a piece of the other's soul. They felt their chakra change, flare, grow. Their reserves were getting lower and lower as the chakra produced in their coils was getting denser and denser the more their souls exchanged matter. And when they were getting more and more tired, on the verge of chakra exhaustion, the timer ran out and the seal ceased to work. The chakras pulled away from each other. The souls stopped clashing. The final product was an amalgamation of both souls and chakras, and yet both Conan and Rei didn't become one entity. They were clearly still two separate beings with their respective bloodlines, skills, personalities, minds, souls. But their souls were no longer resembling a human. They were a patchwork of two. As was their chakra. Nobody will ever be able to find out where one started and the other ended. The second the seal ceased its action, both exhausted kids started falling forward. They gently fell into each other's embrace and their foreheads gently met. Rei and Conan started shuddering in euphoria. Their very existence was happy at the touch. Their hearts fluttered and their souls couldn't help but shudder with their bodies as the two patchwork amalgamations connected, no longer fighting but somehow creating one, bigger soul. At least, until the two children again separate. While Rei and Conan blissfully slept in each other's embrace, their connected soul was unconsciously pressurizing their bodies, connecting their chakra in a similar way as their souls. Suddenly, their chakra coils had a need to widen. They had to contain these two, this one connected amount of chakra and had no space. And that is what their bodies and chakra coils did. They started growing. Slowly, ever so slowly. But, the chakra created was dense, heavy, compressed. The pressure on their bodies was barely being mitigated as the natural energy flooded their bodies, reinforcing them, soothing them, toughening them while keeping them alive. The destruction and recreation of the cells were faster than normal human eyes could process, and both Rei and Conan physically aged by 2 years. Their bodies looked like 10-year-olds. As their minds started to be caressed by the energy, they started to increase in proficiency, processing speed, capacity. They gained something akin to perfect memory and enhanced mind. But, for all the advantages, Conan and Rei could never separate. They now belonged to each other. This connection was far more severe than any magical marriage bond could be in a distant world of wizards. Unknowingly to them, no human being could survive such a clash of souls, chakra, and the flood of natural energy. The supreme chakra control talent and godly natural energy attunement talent barely managed to keep the kids alive, changing them irreversibly. Somewhere near Amigacure, Hanzo's boss salamander summoned suddenly stopped as if struck. Its eyes wide and mouth agape. Only Hanzo recognized the shock of his old friend and got worried as he never saw him in such a state. The summoned animal was visibly shivering as a poisonous cloud was leaving its mouth. Hanzo decided it was not worth it to keep fighting if his summoned salamander was in such a state. He looked at the 3 idiots who challenged him and were now bloodied, messy, and barely standing while supporting each other. Sigh, youngsters these days. So rash. He sneered behind his mask at them, his eyes looking at them in contempt. The 2 men were alive only because the weak female was an extraordinary medic. Without her, they would be but a smear on the ground or keeling over from the poison in a minute. Exactly like their summoned animals. Ha, salamanders rocks. Manda and Gamabunta were both barely swaying from side to side, a little away from the battlefield as they had to put a supreme effort to stay on their feet, or belly, in Manda's case. Katsuyu was already out of it, but then again, she was the one without any damage as poison managed to only knock her out. It wouldn't hurt her in any other way. Tsunade felt despair. She knew exactly how much chakra she had left and it didn't look very promising. Hanzo was much stronger than her idiotic teammates thought. He was playing with them. 3-on-1 and he was standing on his salamander looking at their battered form with a raised eyebrow. It was a very painful wake-up call. But then she felt it and her head snapped to the east. The boundless energy coming from somewhere. She could only feel it on the corner of her senses. Not fully. But she knew where she felt something like this the last time. Hashirama-ji. Her mind faltered. She didn't know it was Senjutsu chakra, an amount large enough to topple boss summon, that she was sensing. But this feeling ingrained itself in her soul and will stay in her mind for years to come. Making her unable to forget. Unable to get it out of her mind. Unable to focus on anything else. She was a Senju and Senju had a peculiar body. Connected to nature. Sensitive. Tsunade was too close to not be affected. Jiraiya's mind was reeling even though his body could not move anymore as Tsunade supported him. He could feel the boundless nature energy. But he had more important things to think about. Tsunade. Boobs. Squishy. He. Orochimaru had only one thought as his eyes darted from side to side with a frown, playing cool despite his blood literally covering his body. No little boys anywhere. Me. I will now withdraw. Hanzo told them regally even though he was mentally rolling his eyes. The trio was happy they stood on their feet. What withdraw? If they will really believe such bullshit and lousy acting, they are Konohanin. Of course, they would believe it. You fought well, weaklings, younglings. Hanzo's eyebrow twitched as he impassively continued as if it was a rehearsed script in a bored tone. I will now bestow a title of 3 Ordner Sannin. Yes. You are from now on Sannin of Konoha. Wear it as proudly as you stood today in front of me and entered managed to fight me. The trio that was barely standing, happily flopped onto the ground, and Hanzo's sweat dropped. I am still here, you know. He thought awkwardly and then noted the white-haired man was already soundly sleeping while his hand was squeezing a boob of the ticked-off blonde female who was barely restraining herself from punching the idiot to his early grave. The black-haired girlish boy was sighing in disappointment. At least one smart man. Hanzo mentally praised, but then he saw the wide, disturbing perverse smile on Orochimaru's dreamy face and his long tongue rolling out of his mouth with drool as his eyes glazed over, dreaming about research, boy toys, and, ugh. Hanzo shuddered. Welp, better get the fuck out of here. And with that Hanzo turned around, disturbed, and ran. His mind conspiring, tears streaming down his face as he thanked it was raining. Maybe Konoha really did know what they were doing. Sending those 3 against me. I feel scarred for life. The huge spike of natural energy was forgotten by all but Tsunade who, in that instance, found a new life goal for herself. Konan opened her eyes and groggily sat down. She felt Rei's hand in hers, squeezing it gently and her cheeks reddened. She looked at Rei and saw his peacefully sleeping face. His older face. She didn't know what gripped her but her heart fluttered at the sight and she wanted to be with him. She wanted to. Rei opened his eyes only to see an older form of Konan looking at him with an expectant, gentle, and loving gaze. He also saw a flicker of love in her eyes but wrote it off as his wishful thinking. Hello. Konan quietly whispered. Good morning, Konan. Rei yawned and rubbed his tired eyes. It was then that both of them remembered what happened How much did they sleep? Hour? Day? Week? The duo looked at each other awkwardly until Rei shrugged. No need to worry about it anymore. It happened. Konan nodded and quickly pecked his lips, leaving him staring at her, completely flabbergasted. I love you, Rei. She told him cheerfully. Rei didn't even manage to process what he just heard but his heart moved his lips for him. I love you too, Konan. They continued to smile at each other. Well, we should probably start training. Ray rubbed the back of his head and redirected his stare to the ground, beet red. Conan agreed as she also couldn't help but look towards her fumbling hands with crimson cheeks. The duo distracted themselves with running, sparring, and training their chakra natures for the day. The evening quickly came and both Ray's and Conan's feelings were already calm. They knew what they felt for each other. They also knew they would eventually end with each other. It was inevitable. That was what their minds and hearts were telling them. But neither of them was ready for anything more than a peck on the lips. No matter how explorative they felt. They instead channeled the energy into the training and thankfully it helped. With a calm mind, Ray remembered why he made the linking seal in the first place. It's such a pity the seal didn't help you feel the nature energy. Oh. Conan stopped nibbling on her jerky and gulped down what she had in her mouth. But I somehow sense the world differently now. What? Ray looked at her bewildered and then a theory appeared in his mind. What if? He started to conduct many tests and told Conan to do many things and tell him how she felt and found out a very staggering result. Conan had a more diluted version of his godly nature attunement talent. She could sense nature chakra but then. Conan. Quickly look at your chakra control. Ray giddily jumped up and down. Conan nodded and a few seconds later, squealed. It's almost perfect. In the excitement, she smashed her lips to Ray's, and the kids kissed for a few moments. As they separated, Ray gently patted bashful Conan. Kissing is okay. He told her in a whisper. Conan raised her head hopefully, her eyes met his as she chewed on her lower lip. But nothing more than that. Conan nodded profusely in happiness and pecked Ray again. Now, will you tell me what exactly changed with your chakra control? Exclamation point. Conan's face morphed to seriousness. I need a lesser amount of chakra for better effect. I can better circle it. I became better at manipulating it. And I have 5 times the chakra I had before but my control is even better than it was. Conan finished unsurely and Ray's eyes widened as he instantly felt his own chakra. He also had 5 times the amount of what he had before and his control stayed the same. It was still perfect. A lopsided grin appeared on his face. Well, Conan-chan. Looks like we are on the level of Lo Chunin with chakra amount. Ray exclaimed giddily and Conan instantly hugged his torso in happiness. Ray smiled at her and thought. Guess that means a somewhat diluted version of his supreme chakra control. Check. After a few moments of relishing their fast growth by patting Conan's head, Ray took a deep breath. Now, the last one. Ray took the storage scroll he first learned on and gave it to Conan. Conan had slight problems with reading and kanji but Ray did his best to teach her during the year they were together. She knew enough. As she saw the seal and read through the kanji on it, Conan blinked at Ray. I understand it. She whispered to herself. Conan tried to imitate Ray and learn how to do exploding tags. Even with Ray's help, she has still been dubbed a godly klutz talent when it came to seals by Ray. It had nothing with her penmanship or knowledge. She had a natural problem or predisposition to fuck up infusing her intentions with her chakra. It was something that could not be taught by anyone to her. Conan already accepted she will never learn anything Fuinjutsu related unless she spends supreme effort, resources, and time. And even then she would need teachers, books. She just gave up and decided to focus on her futon. But now she looked at the seal and she knew what she did wrong previously. Her mind as if clicked and she was able to. Oh, God. She was able to, she knew how to do seals. Conan shrieked in happiness and Ray found himself toppled to the ground as Conan rubbed her head on his chest. Sealing talent. Check. He mumbled as he tried to regain his breath. Well, now you will be able to produce your own explosion tags. He quipped and enjoyed the childish pout on Conan's face. Ray pinched her cheek with a heartfelt laugh, making her pout more. With a long moo, Conan nibbled her lower lip in embarrassment. Wait, you now feel nature energy, right? Ray asked for a confirmation. Conan tilted her head in confusion. The energy that is not chakra in the air, plants, everywhere, really. Focus on it. Don't take any of it into your body but make her senses perceive it. Conan nodded and did as Ray told her. She smiled wide when she could feel the world around herself. It was just so beautiful. She never thought the dull, gray, and rainy world could be so gorgeous. Her hand squeezed Ray's. It's beautiful. Conan hugged Ray. Yes. I guess it is. He chuckled. Now. Up to learn how to hide your chakra. Conan nodded enthusiastically. Ray started to explain the principles about coating yourself with nature energy, wearing it as clothes around your chakra, and Conan was nodding from time to time. Then her mind started focusing on the energy around her and she tried to manipulate it. Moo, I cannot move it. She complained. Ha, just keep trying. Ray encouraged her while making sure to move more nature energy closer to Conan to make it easier for her. His giddy mind had only one thought and it brought him joy from the future possibilities. Guess that really meant she had a lesser nature talent, attunement talent. It took Conan 3 days to learn how to move the nature energy around. In that time Ray found out their bodies were strengthened quite a bit and could now crack the bark of a tree with his punch. He also managed to coat a kunai in the lightning chakra, making the chakra vibrate at high speed for better sharpness and penetrability. He now trained with a chikudo he skaven dash, found lying on the ground without an owner. Correction, without an owner who would care. He could only slash and slash again since he knew nothing about kenjutsu, but, slowly, he found out when and where to put more strength and how to handle the sword. Even if it was just waving it around. The second he added lightning chakra, it became a deadly weapon even without any skill with it. Ray. Conan approached Ray, a question all over her face. Do you know if I could coat my paper in the nature chakra to make them also invisible to chakra sensors? Ray's mind stilled. Possible, but... He instantly held his chikudo in front of him and coated it in his lighting chakra. Conan. I am going to do something possibly stupid. Ray smiled brightly at her, making Conan want to smack him. Ray pulled the raw nature energy and fed it into the Raitan chakra without having it go through his body. The lightning instantly grew, the chirping sound was now ferociously reverberating through the woods and the ground under the blade of his chikudo was cracking every time a stray lightning bolt struck it. The most surprising was the color though. The lightning was pure abyssal black. Not like the one used by 3rd Reikage or Darui. That could be described as light black. This was the blackest of black and Ray had to gulp as he felt the danger from it. He instantly ceased channeling the nature energy and the lightning simmered back into a controlled blue coating around the blade. He nodded to himself. Yes. It is very possible, all right. He told Conan and praised her for the idea with a head pat. Kana smiled and put a paper on the ground, taking a few steps away from it in case it had a dangerous reaction. In hindsight, that's what I should have done. Ray thought with a sweat drop. Conan started channeling the raw nature energy into the paper. It was messy and half of her chakra mixed with the nature energy and was absorbed by the ground instead of the paper. But the paper was now simmering with the wind, pulsing with sharpness. It was no longer just a coating of blue futon chakra. It was a translucent wind-like coating that looked extremely sharp. Conan flung it into the nearby tree and... Both Ray and Conan were gaping. The paper was so fast it was hard to follow. Moreover, it didn't pierce through the tree as expected. It completely felled it into 2 pieces on impact and went on, felling 10 more trees behind it until the futon chakra dissipated, making the nature energy disperse. Ray looked at Conan and patted her head with a sigh. Demolition master, indeed. Then his eyes fell on the spot where Conan channeled the raw nature chakra mixed with her chakra into the paper. His jaws dropped again. He yanked Conan towards the place. Conan was confused. She was full of ideas on how to use her new findings to decimate Ray's enemies. What could be so important he had to interrupt her? She was on the verge of pouting. But when she saw a small budding sapling slowly growing out of the place the paper was previously on, she tilted her head. Mokutan. Ray watched the sapling stop growing when it reached 4 feet because of insufficient chakra. What did you do? His head snapped to Conan who nervously fumbled with her fingers. I mixed my chakra with the nature energy and wanted futon chakra. Conan trailed off, not knowing if she did something wrong. Of course. Ray slapped his forehead and started to laugh hysterically. You have wind prevalent with earth and water secondary. You just pushed your earth and water natured bits that were still mixed with raw nature energy to the ground while leaving the futon mixed with nature energy in the paper. He still chuckled as he explained what just happened and started to mix an entire 1/5 of his chakra with nature energy and pushed it deep into the ground. Conan and Ray had to jump away as a tall thick tree quickly rose from the ground. It was not a giant tree that could be found in Konoha but it was still a full-grown tree. Oh, well, looks like I gained a Kekii Genkai too. even if it is a fake one. Well, figures the Mokuton is not really a Kekii Genkai of Senju. Instead, it is their attunement to the nature chakra, and Hashirama just mixed his elemental chakra with nature chakra. He was supposed to be an incredible sensor, after all. Rei chuckled. The only Mokuton reproduction is through his cells. Yup, it makes sense since his body would get used to channeling it. Rei? Conan asked, not understanding as he mumbled to himself. Listen, Conan. This. Rei explained. He explained about Hashirama Senju. The Senju clan. Konoha. And how dangerous it would be to show anyone this ability. Conan furiously nodded. She had no intention of going to Konoha. Konoha Nin killed her parents. She still held a grudge. That's why when she found out it was Konoha Nin attacking the town, she may or may not have used more exploding tags than she should and made sure lots died. But Conan was sure Rei noticed. After all, he was creating these tags. She was happy when he decided to say nothing about it. She really loved Rei. We will have to train earth and water manipulation. Rei sighed. Thankfully my absolute control means that unless I mean it, no tree will grow no matter how much chakra and nature energy I push into the ground. Really now. I would never know I could do this without a coincidence like this. Rei started chuckling again. It was quite hilarious. He wondered how many Senju actually were able to do Mokuton only to fail at the most basic of things. Intent. They unconsciously didn't believe they could, since not once during childhood they unconsciously raised a tree. So, no tree was ever created by them. Conan never heard of Mokuton, so for her creating the tree was nothing extraordinary. It was a huge mind-opener for Rei if nothing else. Well, you Conan will have to train hard to not unconsciously call forth trees. Rei patted her head with a proud smile, making Conan happy. Your control is pretty much ironclad, but mistakes do happen. We will work on it, Kay. Rei kissed her cheek, determined to train water and earth control alongside Conan. A week later, Conan sat cross-legged with a serene smile on her lips and her hands outstretched to the sides, her elbows bent toward the ground, and above her palms, a paper floated. On her right one was a paper brown as earth, a clear sight of mastered beginner exercise for earth nature, and on her left was a paper soaked, dripping cold water onto her palm. For 2 hours straight, the water didn't stop dripping from the still to the brim soaked paper. A clear sign of beginner-level mastery of water manipulation. Rei could only sigh as he sullenly watched the soaked paper in between his palms. Yes, yes. I managed only one nature in 7 days. Fuck you too. He thought depressingly. He could not fault Conan though. He knew what his problem was. He might have all natures, but Conan was unconsciously using earth and water chakra since she learned how to harden her paper or make it not become soaked underwater. From there, it took only slight tweaks to master the first exercises of elemental mastery. Yet again, the superiority of the elemental Kekii Genkai holders was thrown into his face. They just could, so they did. They instinctively knew how to do this after using their Kekii Genkai long enough. No wonder they could reach far ahead of the normal ninja. Their minds were geared to master their own element in the quickest time possible. Rei was sure this was not the only time Conan would overtake him in wind, earth, or water. But he knew she had nothing on him in lightning and most likely fire too once he started to train it. Rei, on the other hand, had to do the entire process by ear from start to the end, and even then it was possible only due to his exceptional control. But if a normal ninja saw him complaining about mastering the first exercise of his element in a week, he would choke on his blood. People train years to do so. But Rei couldn't help but smile at his observations during these 3 days as his mind swirled in giddy thoughts. We now have Mokuton. The raw nature chakra leads our earth and water nature chakra to form the tree. It is the known pinnacle of earth and water chakra manipulation, and we can do it unconsciously. All we have to do is find out how our chakra does it and bam. Hee hee. Oh, Rei was very excited about finally having an elemental Kekii Genkai holder advantage. Alright.